Ian.
Dave.
Victoria.
Hello.
Victoria effing Scott. We had to have you back on the show.
Yes.
This is the Apex Adjacent podcast. Ian and I did some things, and the very first thing that we thought of was we need to talk to Victoria about the things that we've done. We're going to get to that, but how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I live in because the last time we talked, I was crashing in Kyle Tromka's house in Los Angeles. My van had broken down on my transcontinental road trip. Finished that up. Moved to Reno, Nevada. Got a full-time job staff writing at The Drive, so I do news and features for us now. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's been an interesting year. That's a really good way to put it. It's been a very interesting year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. See also the last several years for everybody. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Well, let's cut right to it. So we thought of you because we got the chance to drive the new Civic Si and the new Acura Integra back to back, and we were like, we need like a Honda Sage to come in and help us make sense of all these feelings that we have that we don't know what to do with.
Honda's unofficial unpaid PR lady.
Yes, exactly.
Where do I swipe my credit card for the therapy copay? do I just hold it up to the webcam? I'll read it. Hang on. Yeah.
I need the 3 digits on the back as well.
not a problem. Yeah. So you have so much history with Honda and so much, we look up to you when it comes to your automotive opinions in general. But I think you have a very special thread when it comes to Honda stuff, right?
Yeah. So I have 2 brands that I kind of have like relationships with in terms of my personal life. And it's been Toyota, which I've owned 4 different cars from. And they're usually like deep loving bonds, which hurt me immensely in some way. And so it's kind of with Toyota stuff, it's kind of like, this is so good and no other car fills this purpose, but also I will be hurt repeatedly for seeking out this specific vehicle. My Supra, my Matrix XRS, and my van all kind of fit into this category. Marsha's down for the moment. She's got more mechanical problems, and just like as you're noticing, I've been on this show twice. The van has been down with repairs both times. It's at a certain point I have to admit, like, okay, yeah, this is a little challenging sometimes, especially given the parts supply issues.
Little do you know, it's been us flying out and breaking your van, so that way you can't leave, so you have to be on our show.
No, I went underneath it, and there's a dent in the transmission pan, and that is on me. that was 100% my doing. I take full credit.
There wasn't like a bunch of gray hair and a hammer laying there.
Not that I saw. If you got up I did it on top of a mountain next to the Fallon test range, where they actually have the Top Gun program out here in Nevada.
Yeah.
And it was like I was driving down. It was like a 20% grade, and I was just super heavy on the brakes and compressing all the suspension. And I clunked it off a rock, and I was like, "It's probably fine." No lights came on, and then 4th gear never came back, and I was like, So I mean, I don't know. Maybe Ian was hiding under the hard pack dirt surface, just waiting to like toss a rock in my transmission pan.
No, but I do feel like I would have been beneficial in that moment because I have a really particular knowledge of what a like crippling rock to an oil pan sounds like and feels like in a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I've gone through so many on my Volkswagen.
Yeah, so that's the Toyota relationship, which is much more of like I will never like pen a love letter to Toyota in general, but Honda, I've owned 2 Hondas. I've had an 88 Prelude SI and then an 86 Honda Accord Aerodeck, which is probably getting sold sometime in the near future, partially to finance fixing the van. But both of those cars are the complete opposite. I have let them down. The only reason I got rid of my Prelude was because I took a road trip. I daily drove it to work every day, and it was phenomenal, and it handled incredible, and I bought it for $3,000. And it was just like, it was a bright Barbados yellow Y49, 5-speed manual, 2.0 SI, 2-wheel steering, and it was just on economy tires, just ringing the hell out of it. It was just so much fun. I always had a blast in that thing. And then my Accord is slammed on a combination of coilovers on work equips with a big sound system in it, and it's the most fun cruiser I've ever owned, and it just, you feel like hot shit driving it. And then every other Honda I've ever interacted with, I learned how to drive on an 8th gen Civic sedan. My ex had an 8th gen Civic Si with a supercharger, big stickies, like autocross monster. One of my close friends is like a CRV. Like every Honda I've ever interacted with has always been just so well fit for its purpose, and it never complains. And then once I started reviewing cars, the first car I reviewed professionally that was like from a loaner fleet was a Ridgeline, HPD Ridgeline.
That's
so it had
right.
like, the graphics and like the black plastic cladding and stuff, and I loved it. I slept out of that thing. I asked Honda's PR guy, I was like, so is it cool if I like go camping in this thing and I like sleep in it? And he was like, yeah, sure, go use it like a truck. And I was like, cool. And then everything that I've reviewed since then, I've just been pretty overwhelmingly pleased with. So like you can kind of get an idea of where I'm going to go with my opinion on these two cars. But yeah, that's I'm waiting for a Honda to let me down, and I'm still waiting, and I've driven dozens at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. Yeah.
It really is.
And not to spoil anything, I think that like the thing about Ian and I is like how we feel about these cars. I don't want to speak on your behalf, Ian, but we love them. It's just complicated. It's just like there's different ways like that we feel about each of them, but it's absolutely an overall positive force, right?
Yeah, and I think being let down and you letting them down versus the car letting you down is a good way to kind of think about, especially I think the Integra, right? Because I think that the only way that the two of you are going to be let down after your interaction with it is if you brought something to it that wasn't right. You know, I'm talking mostly about expectations, right? Like that you can sour your relationship with the Integra by having it in your head, and you talked a lot about this in your review. Thinking too much about the 3rd gen Type R.
Instead of Acura as like the brand, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, I did that story I did 2 for the drives. I did like the straightforward first drive of the Integra, and yeah, I really liked it. Just as a car, in a vacuum for its price, if you compare it against what else is in its segment, I liked the driving experience. I like that it comes with a 6-speed. Mm-hmm. I personally I still think that Honda is doing infotainment probably the best out of anybody in like the non-super luxury market right now. The way that they integrate the touchscreens and like physical controls and just the whole layout in the dash feels very unintrusive, and I like that. But yeah, the second review I did was about like the history of the Integra and stuff. And like the first Integra, which I drove, Honda's got a Heritage Fleet car, and they let me drive it because I don't know. They were just like, here, have the keys to this like 30,000 mile 1986 Integra. And I was like, cool, I'm not asking questions. But like the thing that was interesting to me about that is like the overwhelming experience stepping out of the very first Integra was not one of like, wow, this thing is so sporty or whatever. Because I've driven old 80s Hondas, and like they all feel pretty great. They all have great transmissions. They all rev. Like that one's twin cam, so it felt a little bit better up top end. But like they all great. I mean, they all scream to, you know, whatever the red line is, and they just feel like generally happy to be used like a sporty car.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I stepped out of it is like, as opposed to a lot of other 80s cars, like it wasn't rattly, it wasn't noisy. It had Falcon Azentis on it, and it still had like relatively low road noise on the freeway, and like you could roll up the windows and it was still comfortable inside, and like you felt a little isolated. It was like a little baby step into luxury, and that was the thing I came away from it thinking, instead of like, oh, this is like the crazy Type R Sport, which I did like 1 lap in a Type R once, and it's the most sublime front wheel drive car ever built, but it is a completely different animal. And that's like the badge. The Type R badge says this is going to be the best front wheel drive sports car you've ever driven. And the Integra badge is like, it's a nice Civic. That's like what they've always been. That's my thoughts. Go, please. I don't mean to interrupt.
No. And I completely agree. And that was growing up. You know, I think I'm definitely older than you. I think those Integras were really big when I was, you know, like a kid, and they were always, you saw an Integra and you were like, oh, that's somebody who's like on their way from Civics, but not quite to a BMW 3 Series or whatever, right? Like that was always the deal with those. And the new one, I think, lives up to that really well. Like, it's really comfortable and stuff like that. The thing that was so weird about it was like how different it felt than the SI. Like how we drove them back to back on a tight road, and the SI felt significantly faster.
Well, so here's the question. Did the Civic Si you drove have the summer tire option equipped?
I believe it did.
That is a lot of the reason, I think, because I drove the Civic Si with the summer tires, which are like a $200 upcharge. I think they're Goodyear
F1s.
And they F1s? Oh, sorry, there's Bert here.
Bert.
He's interrupting the podcast. Bert is my cat, just for listeners. This is not a random person milling about my house.
Random dude enters the frame. Yeah.
I told you to stay in your hole.
No, so I really think that that's a significant amount of where that difference came from, because so one of the things that I love the Civic Si for is that it's the suspension tuning on it, combined with the fact that it's got a really stiff chassis, meant that like it could still have relatively reasonable spring rates while still offering what felt like incredibly firm handling. So I always was very confident of where like the limits were and stuff. And then I drove the Integra and it didn't feel the same at all. But I did when I looked through like the tech specs and stuff for the Integra is 2% stiffer in chassis than the sedan Civic is. So it's not a matter of chassis, and I think it just comes down to a little bit of suspension tuning for sure, because they put the three-way adjustable on the A-Spec, at least the top trim.
Yeah.
But I really think 90% of it comes down to those tires.
Huh.
It could be, and honestly, I think part of it is the seats too, because the seats in the SI are like outrageously good and supportive and grippy.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like in the Integra, at least when we were on the tighter sections and bombing it a little bit more, like you kind of are rolling around a little bit, and it kind of gives the impression that it's like wallowing, but I don't think it actually is.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it had a little bit more wallow to it than the SI did for sure. Even with the thing is, like, even all the way up to like sport or whatever and the adaptive dampers, I never thought it was quite as stiff as the Civic Si was, just at its default factory setting. And so like if you like trail brake the Integra, you definitely get like a little bit more roll and a little bit more push coming out of the rear than you would in the Civic Si. Which I guess, like, I don't know, it feels, the Civic Si feels like it's engineered for an 8/10 canyon drive super well. And like that's kind of what it's chasing above all, because it's got way more road noise, and the seats are amazing, but they're a lot less comfortable for long trips. You know, I did like 5 hours on our test loop with the Civic Si for the first drive, and I got out and I was like, wow, okay, those, I feel them. I have sores. Whereas the Integra is like, you know, it's much more comfortable, and like the 8/10 experience is not going to be as enjoyable, but also you can actually like drive to and from work, and like you can get out of the car and not feel like the bolsters were like reminding you that you had a burger for lunch, you know?
Right.
I do think it's really important what you said, and Ian, you called this out while we were driving it as well. That like finding the limits of the Civic Si is pretty easy. Like it lets you know what they are very quickly, and like you can get to them pretty quick, right? Like that communication is up and open. But it's not that it's vague with the Integra, but it's a lot more nuanced. Like it would take more effort to figure out exactly where things would break loose, exactly like what would happen. And personally, I would be like a little bit more sketched out, like trying to get there. It would definitely take me longer to find them in the Integra than the Si. Yeah.
Well, and the Integra too, I would also say, is like, it's more sudden. The Civic is tuned super well for that kind of like front wheel drive car, progressive brake to understeer. So it's like, it's the kind of car that's just like, please explore the outer boundaries of what you can do, because like I won't let you kill yourself. And the Integra isn't oriented like that. And so it like when I remember the few times that I was like, whoa, that was a little interesting, it came up very quickly and I really think 90% of it comes down to the tires. I would be so curious to throw a set of the Goodyears on an Integra and see what it did. I feel like it would be almost dead on.
Huh.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. I don't think we checked to see what tires were on the Integra.
We did not, but like Ian even like we found the rev limiter in second gear on the Civic Si, and then we were like, it's got to be different on the Integra just because it feels different. Ian,
I thought it was geared taller, and I actually like grabbed the Integra from another journalist and was like, hey, I need to do something real quick. And I just like looped out of the parking lot, hit the rev limiter in second gear, and brought it right back. And it was the exact same in both cars. Like it's
53 miles an hour. Yeah, exactly.
Dead nuts on both.
Yeah.
Which I was shocked about because it felt way slower. And it's just even in a straight line.
Yeah. But
I mean, that could also just be cabin isolation too, right?
Yeah.
Like the Civic is convincing you, hey, I'm really quick.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And we drove a bunch of stuff that day, and the Civic Si was hands down the fastest thing on that route that we did. It was like a tight canyon road sort of thing. And it was such a joy to drive on that road. Like it was exactly, like you said, it's exactly what it was tuned for. And it was so confidence inspiring to just like, it just egged you on, like, go, go, go.
So glaring omission, I haven't driven the Hyundai N cars. So I need to drive those, I know, because like people really love them. So I can't speak to that, but I've driven a decent amount of the other stuff that kind of competes in that like $30,000-ish sporty sell to 27-year-old idiots kind of category, who are like, you don't want a Miata because you might have 3 friends, but basically like, I mean, occasionally you might have 3 friends. I don't know. I've heard it happens. But like you want to have a sporty car. And it's my favorite by far. Like if I continually tell people this, I'm probably going to stick with old broken down piles of crap for the rest of my life because it's just my personality. But if I did buy a new car and I could actually find one on a lot, I would really consider a Civic Si just because it suits what I want so well. It's so good at being quick and like it's tolerable to go to the grocery store. And that's it. I drove a straight piped car with a welded diff to work every day. Like my standards for comfort are in the basement. So that thing is like driving a Maybach.
Right.
I think you and Ian are very similar in that because his car slams so hard, his VW. It is so ready for the track, and Denver roads are not friendly to it.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Earlier oil pan comments. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and the SI, it just felt like I got in that thing and I was just like, oh, I'm home. Everything is exactly where I want it to be. The seating position is like dead on. You know, the gearbox is amazing. Everything and the seats were like perfectly sized for me. Like I was just even like Honda's been on that thin pillar kick lately. And so like you can even see better out of it. Like your lines going through corners where you're like, okay, I'm trying to like make sure there's no cars coming or anything. Like it's just it's ideal. It is ideal. And the best thing is they walked back that horrendous styling kick that they were on for a few years there, where they were like, I need to look like a Transformers gym bag or whatever the fuck they were doing.
See, I don't know. I know a lot of people hated that, and like I don't know. It's not the worst. I do think the new one is handsome. Yeah, I think it's good looking. I think it definitely needs to come in orange. I would never get it in any other color than that.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I a lot of people. It's funny because like a lot of people hated like the previous gen Type R, and I never did. I thought it was styled exactly at who it needed to be styled to, which was me.
Well, there's that.
It's so easy to review these because I am the target market. I'm like 27 and I have too much adrenaline.
Right. Yeah. And I will say that the Integra looks, while we're on the subject of looks, that I am astounded at the gap. We were talking about this last week. Like the gap between how poorly the Integra photographs, or at least a lot of the photographs that I've seen, and the way it looks in person. Like I can't remember a new car where that gulf was so big. I
also think that a big part of that was that their launch pictures just were really unfortunate. I don't want to diss another photographer's work, but their launch pictures for it were kind of, I don't know. I think I would have used a different focal length if I were them, but what do I know?
Yeah. Well, what did you do to get it to photograph well? Like what
I did it. I think the big thing is like when I normally take pictures of cars, I like basically get on my knees and shoot from like a super low angle. And if you look at my shots of the new Integra, they're taken a little bit higher. I think a lot of it just comes down to like it doesn't shoot well at the traditional like car angle because of the way the grill is sloped, I feel like. So I just shot it a little bit higher, and then like I used mostly a 50. And that was more or less all I did. I think it's a good looking car.
It's great looking. Yeah.
I also think that like they were doing themselves a disservice by launching it in that bright yellow with the Integra stripe on the bottom. Because whenever you do that, you look like you're trying to hide something. And then everybody's like, how bloated and big is this thing going to be? How hideous is it going to be? And it's like, it's actually not. I don't know why they did that. It was font callback or whatever. It was a silly decision, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like trying maybe too hard to tap into the Type R like demo than maybe just the Acura Integra demo. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, Ian asked me which one I would rather have, and I haven't told him until now. I'd rather have the Acura Integra between these two cars. But then again, if you blend the cars that I currently have today, which is a Fiat 500 Abarth and a Lexus LS 460, like you end up at an Acura Integra, right? Like that's what you crash those two cars into each other and this spits out. Yeah.
It's like doing one of those face blend apps.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, and I think that's what's the other crazy thing about this is that I think maybe some of the reason that people are a little bit like, I don't know what to do with this right now is that this segment almost doesn't exist anymore, right? Like something that's sporty, but like more like junior executive-y with a small front wheel drive package.
Well,
what else would you cross shop with this?
BMW's what is it? Whatever the base 2 series is. I think you could probably look at like a CLA, a Benz CLA, I guess. That's kind of similar. I don't know. There's not a lot of cars in that segment. I think a lot of it is moved to crossovers. But I will note that like Acura was selling the ILX before. Everybody just forgot that it existed, which is kind of funny because that car wasn't. I mean, I haven't driven it. I've heard contemporary reports that it was maybe not exactly the best. But I will say it got an actual DCT, so it was like it had at least the sport chops for it. I really think that like 90% of the Integra excitement versus the ILX or previous cars that Acura has made, really a lot of what they've done in the past year, which I find fascinating from like a automotive historian sense, is their marketing took a absolutely absurd swerve out of left field, where they if you look at the marketing campaigns for like the ILX and stuff, which is a three letter badge, whatever, there's no brand equity they're building on there. They're trying to prove that they're like above that. They are the rational choice. It's all like keyless entry and the precision engineering and all that stuff. And then they come out with the Integra and the Type S line, and they're like, here's an anime series, and we're gonna do a burnout and an NSX. Hope you like this, fuckers. And that's more or less like, and that to me is like, I think that bit of direction had kind of like filtered through the rest of the lineup, and then you end up with the Integra, which is like a little bit more heavy on the sport emphasis. I don't know how much more sportier it is than the ILX, but like it does drive a little bit more Civic Si. It definitely seems like it'd be more fun than like a BMW 2 Series. I don't know. I got to drive one of those. I drove an M2 recently. That was great, but I think that's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. In that they're fucking quick. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. Like the SI and the Integra like really make you think about them like after you drive them. Like they're sticky. Like I've thought about them a lot. We drove this over a week ago, and it's been rattling around in my head. Like if I because I thought like, okay, let's say my LS 460, it's time to depart with that. right? Like that's the car that's going to blow up first out of that in my Fiat. You can tell how delusional I am. But like if I wanted to move on from the LS, like I'm thinking an EV, something like that, right? Like, super like mile crushing. But then I drove the Integra and I was like, no, wait a second.
So you liked it. So Ian,
I did.
Ian so am I to take from this that Ian liked the Civic and you liked the Integra more?
Uh-huh.
Is that accurate?
I think so. I get the Integra. I get why someone would end up in the Integra. That someone is just not me.
So how did this make you both feel when you in my role as therapist? I feel like we have to mediate this conflict.
Yeah. I celebrate our unique points of view. I do. I really value Ian's thoughts and yeah. No, I don't know. It's practicality is not something that sells Ian very often, right?
Well, I think it's more the luxury side of it that like I get, and it's nice, but I would rather go faster, right? I would rather go faster. That's just the trade-off I'm willing to make. But I think the thing that I was confused about and worried about for Acura after I came away with this was I don't know how to describe this to somebody and have them end up buying this, right? Like, and not walking to the BMW dealership or the Mercedes dealership, I think that's the thing that I'm like what gap in the market did they see, and is it actually there, or is this target person just going to end up buying an SUV?
Well, and I think that's also kind of crucial because, like, the Integra is weird because, like, not a lot of manufacturers start off with a base model luxury car as their entry point. And I think that you could look at it and say, like, oh, well, the whole point is to get people into the showroom so they buy an MDX.
Right. It's like a reverse Halo.
It's MDX right now, right? Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's the bottom weighted Halo. Because you had the NSX Type S at the top, and then you got this at the bottom, and it's like, ooh, we're sporty and cool, and then you use that image to sell your SUVs. Yeah. Which is like a totally valid strategy.
Because
I would want this.
Because everybody looks best lit from underneath.
I'll keep that in mind next time I do portraits. That sounds like a great technique.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I feel like I am the person that would probably buy this car. Like, I really do feel like I like a posh ride. I like before the pandemic, I spent tons of time in traffic, right? Like I bought an Infiniti M45 because I sat in traffic all the time, right? Like that's why I got that car. Like, this, like, I could have my cake and eat it too with a nice manual with rev matching because I'm 6'4" and have no coordination whatsoever. So I need rev matching. I don't know. It just ticks tons of boxes for me. But yeah, I don't know. Like what you're saying about getting the people to the MDXs and stuff. It's like, yeah, you have this, and then when your kids, like have hockey equipment, then you buy the MDX, right?
Yep. And I think that saying hockey equipment specifically is a perfect encapsulation of the Acura target market. Yeah. It's I don't know. The way I described it when I wrote the Integra review was like the Integra is for Victoria Scott, automotive writer who has places to be and appearances to keep up. And the Civic Si is for Tori, who is not thinking about work in the morning because it is 11:30 p.m. and she is currently racing down the side of a mountain because that's more fun. And that's like, it's the same person. It's the same underlying package. It's just like it's presented very differently. And one of them is just very professional. One of them is not. And I guess it comes down to what you want. Like, I'm personally excited with Ian. If I was going to get one, I'd get the Civic. Also, it's cheaper. That's the biggest part of it for me is like, it's almost 10 grand between the two of them. And the Integra interior is a lot nicer and you get a lot more features and like the sound system's really good and all that kind of stuff. But like 10 grand is a lot of money. And you could use that to make the Civic Si even faster.
And less comfortable. Yeah.
There we go. I did not know we were having two Ians on the show this evening. No, I get it, right? Yeah, that 10 grand Golf is big, right? I love the adaptive suspension on the Integra. Like, I think that if I could get that on the SI, if I could soften the SI and have like adaptive suspension, then that's what I would probably want. I think that's kind of the make or break, because the Civic, like, Honda has stepped up their interior game. It's not like it was awful before, but it's amazing now, right?
So good.
Right? Yeah. Like when we got in and I was in the Civic, we drove that first, and it was like, okay, well, where the hell is Acura going to go from here? Like, this is great, you know? Yeah.
And actually, honestly, between the two of them, personally, I liked the unbroken strip of hexagons in the Civic more than I liked.
We were talking about the same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
It's so sharp. Oh my God.
Right?
I adore that both cars' interiors are really good, but the Civic Si is just like, it's one of those cars. Like, I also loved the 8th gen Civic Si's interior because it felt like its own interior. It's weird and but it was also ergonomic. Everything was laid out in a way that made sense, and it felt like its own car. It was never generic. No one would ever accuse an 8th generation Civic of being generic. I feel kind of the same with
8th gen.
8th gen is 06 to 12.
Okay.
So that's the one with like you can't put the notable downside of the 8th gen is you can't put in like a aftermarket radio without a bunch of messing around with it, because it's got the big swoopy dash, and then it's got like the heads up display style speedo with like the tack below. It's so cool. It's like a double decker HUD. It's ridiculously cool, and it's super readable. But it felt like its own car, and that was like a big thing for me. Is it just was like, you never got another car where you're like, oh, this feels like my 8th gen Civic. It's a complaint I have with like a lot of other manufacturers, namely I would say like Subaru. Drove the WRX and I was like, this feels like a generic drawing of a car interior.
But they've been that way for, I know. Ever. Yeah.
I don't get me started.
So the Lancers too, right? The Evos were the same way. They were always like that.
Yeah, but the Evos were so damn cool you could forgive them. And the same way with the STI. But now that Subaru's discontinued the WRX or the STI, it's like, I don't think WRX is cool enough to skirt by on this, guys.
I know we're talking about Honda this tonight, but I was thinking about this today. Like, what is Subaru's game plan? I was thinking about it because I live in Denver and like I just see Subarus all day. It's like,
Reno's the same way.
Yeah, what are they? What are they doing? Like, when is their EV coming? What is that even?
Don't take your Subaru frustrations out on Victoria.
It. No, I reviewed that EV. The Solterra.
Right, the Solterra, but the like, the one that's gonna replace all these XVs that we have.
I don't think that they're ever doing that.
You don't think so?
No, the Solterra is a requirement compliance car. They built 500 of so far, and all of the wheels are falling off, and they can't fix them. And they can't get the wheels back on because Toyota built all of them, and Toyota similarly doesn't care about EVs. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, it's just, you look at the state of Toyota, and they even their advocacy in Japan is calling for not more EVs. They desperately do not want to make EVs. And you could actually make an environmental argument that hybrids are overall better given our current state of mining and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. They don't want to build EVs. And Subaru was like, okay, cool, we'll go with these guys. I feel like that says a lot. And the Solterra was also the most difficult car to review I've ever driven because I felt so weakly about everything in it that I was just like, what do I say? I mean, like, I'm not gonna go and be like, oh yes, the drive.com Subaru is terrible. I have to be a little more nuanced than that. But I was like, this car, I don't even remember it. I remember Subaru put me on a Pilatus PC-12 for part of the press trip, which is like a single engine, like a 9-seater commuter plane. I can tell you every detail about that flight. I don't remember anything about the Solterra, and that's more or less how I felt about it. So sorry, I told you shouldn't have got me going about Subarus.
No. I was driving my kid to school today, and it was just like, what are they gonna do? I don't know why, but it was my that was my morning crisis that I had.
I kind of like the Crosstrek plug-in hybrid.
I've not driven one of those. I've driven a regular Crosstrek, and it's awful.
Yeah.
But plug-in hybrid changes everything. I mean, like RAV4 Prime. Like, we don't like the RAV4, but RAV4 Prime is great. you know?
Mhm.
I just like plug-in hybrids in general. I think they're the smartest solution.
Yeah, they're great, right?
And they just don't market well, so nobody builds them.
Right. And their stats don't look good on paper. Like what you see on paper versus the driving experience is really, that's a big disparity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like anybody that's been remotely interested, I'm telling them like, just go fucking drive it. Just drive it and then talk to me because like you can't. Yeah.
And we did the same thing with EVs that we did with gasoline cars, which is that every number has turned into a dick measuring contest. Like you're not going to get a sub 3 0 to 60 out of your SUV if it's a plug-in hybrid. It's going to be more efficient and better for the environment because it uses less resources while also using less gasoline. It's an environmental win, and it's smart for a lot of people who might have to take road trips or longer commutes or just can't get consistent charging. But it's not sexy.
Yeah.
You can't point to it and say like, look, it's got crab walk and watts to power mode or whatever the fuck they call it.
We're doing great, everybody. We're doing great.
This is just my normal tone about this kind of stuff.
No, that's why we wanted to talk to you because like we have feelings and we know someone who has feelings. Like,
this is as filtered as Victoria Scott gets.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you with the plug-in hybrid thing because we've driven a couple in the last year and they've come such a long way. First of all, because they used to be like real bad. I mean, like real bad. But like the overlap stuff of like, oh, this feels weird when either you go from regen braking to physical braking or like the overlap between electric motor and internal combustion engine. All that stuff has gotten smoothed out and fixed, and like the feel of everything is so much better. And now you get this like added game of like, oh, do I want to preserve my battery now? I need to like be strategic with where I can use my EV only mode and where do I go into charge mode. And it makes the driving experience, it makes it kind of more engaging than it used to be, I think.
Well, and I think that it's also just like for certain applications, it's objectively better too, because like last year I covered Rebel Rally, and the two of the top three in the 4x4 class were 4xe Wranglers. And I granted the teams that drove them were phenomenally talented, and like I suspect that had most of the reason to do with why they won, but also like, fuel consumption and range is a huge part of Rebel for even the gas powered teams. And they had that much less to worry about because I don't know, the Wrangler's got like what, 40 something miles of all electric. It's not like
35.
Okay. It's not like super far, but it's enough.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about an event where you're planning down to the 5 mile increments for your fuel range, that's enormous. So I don't know. I also just like the idea of rock crawling silently is super cool to me.
Right?
Yeah. I took one up and did that, and like we did the whole like what does Jeep call it? The mode where you don't use your battery, e-save or whatever the hell they call it. Anyway, we did that all the way up the mountains, and I had like my whole family with me, and we did a legit Jeep trail. And I'm not an off-roader by any chance or any stretch, but it was the best off-roading experience I've ever had, partly because I was in a Rubicon and it was like super capable and everything.
Yeah.
But like being able to hear what the tires are doing and not have to worry about like, oh, am I in the rev range or whatever, was awesome. It was great. And then just like on the way to and from the Jeep trail, doing that silently and being like in nature was lovely. It was fantastic. I loved every second of it. Yeah.
So I guess the official word of my official input is the Civic Si is great, and buy a plug-in hybrid.
And the Acura Integra should have been a plug-in hybrid. Got it.
No, whoa. Okay, look, I'm still scarred from the CRZ, okay? I'm still a little iffy on that.
I have a friend of mine that picked up a used one for a song. He loves it. He's done a bunch of mods to it, but yeah.
They're hit and miss. I don't know. I'd rather have an Insight, a first gen Insight, because those things
Yeah.
are absurdly cool. I have a friend who has one who routinely gets like 60 miles a gallon on the freeway, and it just looks like the most fun economy car possibly ever built.
Yeah.
It's a spaceship. They built it next to the NSX. It's more or less a race car.
I love that.
That'd be a great autocross spec series. Insights.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here for that.
I've seen people who do Mazda 2s a lot, and those look really
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Like pick up the fourth wheel
Mm-hmm.
through most corners, throw stickies on it and like better brake pads, and more or less don't use them. You just like full throttle and let the tires scrub enough to soak up speed, and it looks super fun. So I could see Insights being fun.
Should you ever come to Denver during autocross season, you have a seat with me in the Fiat 500 at Barth. You can co-drive it with me, and we'll have a fantastic time, Victoria.
Oh, that'd be a blast. Yeah,
I can vouch that is hilarious fun.
Yeah, no, I have not driven. I take that back. I went to an auto show when I was 19 years old, or no, I was 21 because I had to be 21 to actually get to drive the like little test loop things. And out of all the cars at the auto show, there was there's always lines like go test drive stuff there. It was the Cleveland Auto Show, and the only one I waited for and actually went and drove was the Fiat 500 out of Barth.
Hell yeah!
It was unfortunately an automatic, but it was. I still remember it being like, one, wow, the seating position is weird, and two, my God, this thing is so loud.
Yep.
Yep.
Both of those memories are entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I could write a whole review based off of that, but like those are the overwhelming memories.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's two things that stand out, that's it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they're adorable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I
Right.
love them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So through Acura's history, right, with their kind of like their entry level, right, the Integra to RSX and now back to Integra, right? Like,
They had the ILX in there.
oh yeah, the ILX. Yes, thank you. How
Memorable.
did you ever drive one of the RSXs, or like did you have any experience with any of those?
I had friends that had RSXs. But my ex had an 8th Gen Civic Si. It's the same car, basically.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not
Okay.
the nicer interior, so I didn't get to speak to that specifically. But the K20, I will die on the hill of the K20 being the second greatest Honda motor ever constructed, right behind the F20.
Okay.
Like it is so. The K20 is so good. I think the red line is like 8,200, and it's got some. I think it's rods. Something inside is rods and crank maybe are forged factory, and like you throw 10 pounds of boost at it with a supercharger stock. Like you put bigger injectors on it, and it's perfectly happy with it. It still works with Honda data. You can tune the whole thing yourself. The suspension's a little rudimentary out back, but like it's good enough. Just trail brake, it's fine. The aforementioned really good dash and like the 8th gen.
Yeah.
So like I have the experience with the Civic itself, not the RSX, but you could basically build a Trabant around a K20, and I would still probably call it one of the greatest cars of the decade. So, or of the past century, I suppose.
Oh right, I remember this dash now. No,
Yeah.
Dave's showing a picture of it.
Finally pulled up a picture of the Civic, the dash.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
it's
that.
so cool.
Yeah.
So I drove an RSX of this vintage, and
Okay.
I've driven SIs like going back. I have an uncle who's I'm very old, and I can only ever remember him having CRX SIs and Civic SIs for like
King
I
shit.
don't know 35 years, something like that. Like my earliest memories are him. There's a great story that my dad and uncles tell of him hitting, like, hooning his CRX SI and hitting something and popping an axle out of the transmission and just getting a rock and hammering it back in and then driving it to the junkyard to go get another one.
Typical Honda fix.
Right. The car's
Also,
not
it's like
letting
we
you
love
down.
a man who knows what he wants, and like owning 35 uninterrupted years of Honda Civics, I respect it immensely.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, always SIs, and always just beats the shit out of them. And they're just like they're like disposable cars to him. I don't know. Anyway, so I've driven a bunch of these, and I think my favorite interior is still the hatchback one. Was that the
Seventh
gen? Seventh
yeah.
gen. Yeah.
I'm assuming you mean the one with
just-
the shifter in the dash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
That
good.
I had a friend that autocrossed one of those things, and I did not get to drive it, but it was very interesting. That's on my to drive list for sure. I would like
really
to drive every generation of Civic.
Yeah.
Personally.
That's
Yeah,
an ambitious project, actually.
Well,
I mean, I'm working on it.
Yeah,
I drove
if
the
anybody
first
could do
one.
it.
I drove the first CVCC that was ever sold here. So I'm off to I have a strong bookend on one end.
yeah. I'd
Yes.
say the most difficult one has been ticked, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about these, like the 7th gen Honda Civic.
Yeah.
Like before I bought my Infiniti M45, Ian was trying to convince me to get a Focus ST or something like that. And so this, of course, was in the mix for like a used car. And then I realized I have a lot of driving to do, and sitting in traffic in this would be pretty rough. But then it came back up again when I was kind of thinking about the Abarth and maybe a Mini Cooper, and then I wisened up and actually listened to our friend Andrea's tweets about how often she writes DOA certificates for minis, right? But then fell into a super cheap Fiat. Thank you, Jesse. And I've always been fascinated with the little hatchback SIs. They're so great.
The one thing that sucks is like they're super cool, and I think visually they're much more interesting. But they also have a K20, but it's a K20A2, I want to say. And the 8th gen Civic is the K20Z3, and in those two, in that alphanumeric designation is 40 horsepower.
Oh wow!
It's 40 horsepower and significantly stronger internals, and like you can't go do all of the crazy stuff you can do to an 8th gen to one of these. And then after it's going into the 9th gen, they went to the K24, which does technically make more torque, but it doesn't rev as high. And like it's a lot of people will build like Franken Ks where they do like a K20 head on a K24 bottom end, and like you can do crazy stuff with them then. But like out of the box, the 8th gen was kind of like the sweet spot of revs and longevity and tunability, but I think these are cuter, honestly. Yeah. And I mean that just to be clear, I don't think you have a ton of like super toxic car enthusiasts listening to you, but when I say a car is cute, I mean I like it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah,
that is not an insult or a diss. I'm just being clear.
Nope.
You're good. We say cute all the time. That's
exactly. Yeah, I have a really funny story about it, like someone calling a car cute. And so I was at the body shop having my Infiniti, like the front bumper resprayed, and somebody like had like gently rear-ended me, and to the point where like there was no damage except for like in my rear bumper was the hole from one of the screws on their license plate. That was it. Just like it looked like I had one weird misplaced like parking sensor. And so I was having that fixed, right? And some like very bro-ish dude pulls up in his Nissan GTR and gets out, comes into the body shop, and just this like, just the best like crusty receptionist at the body shop looks up, and she's like, "Oh, that's a cute car." And he's like, cute, and just was not having it.
Amazing.
It made me so happy. And he left, and I told her how thankful I was that she said that car was cute, and it made my day. Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I drive a cartoon of a car. Like my 2D2 Scoot Abarth is the cutest thing in the world. Like my wife is so like, she's like it, like as I'm modifying it, she's like, it's not gonna like, you're not gonna change like how it looks, right? I'm like, I'm gonna put little hood vents in, but it's still gonna be cute. Like we're gonna keep it like,
now hear me out.
It
would be hilarious. It would be straight hilarious to put an Angry Eyes Jeep grill on the Abarth.
I think hilarious or war crime. If you use those as synonyms, I agree.
There is a mod to the Abarth that I don't like, where they like, how the headlights come up into the hood, right? Like,
yeah,
there's these hoods that they sell that like flatten that off, and it cuts off
the eyelids.
No. Yeah, cut it out.
It's because the American sports car buyer is just dreadfully insecure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the whole thing with like the watts to freedom mode. I think it's the same. It's the same overarching concept that gives us both the angry-eyed Fiat 500 and the sub 3-second Hummer.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we're about to get into a whole other episode
Yeah.
worth of material here. So before we move on to games and such, I have one last Acura question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So they've rebooted the Integra. What would be if you got put in charge of Acura tomorrow and somebody came to you and said, okay, next up is the Legend. What do you want to do with it?
Ooh,
It can be anything.
That's an interesting question because, like, I don't know, the Legend is like this perfect opportunity to be like, ooh, luxury cars can, EVs specifically could be like stylish and silent and still sporty and all that kind of thing. And like, I think that's going to be one of the things that, manufacturers are going to have to really try hard to prove is that like EVs, because outside of Porsche, most EVs are not like playing up the explicit sport angle. I think the EV6 drives awesome, even like when pushed, which is phenomenal to me. But that would be, you could do an EV drivetrain, but Honda's not really big in on that yet. The Prologue and the whatever the Acura one is, I can't remember the name of it, the actual production one. They did the concept at Monterey. So you could do that. Ideal world where the EPA doesn't exist. I don't know, slap a twin turbo V6 in it or something. What's the motor that's in the MDX right now? Is it a single or twin?
I'm
idea.
not sure.
I'm Googling it because I don't remember.
Yeah.
The MDX to me is
it's a twin scroll single turbo.
Okay.
Slap that in a 3,400 pound luxury coupe, 2 doors only.
Yep.
I'd be happy.
One of the best body styles like ever drafted, right?
I genuinely want one of those so bad.
Right?
Seriously, yeah. I've looked a lot, and the problem is that, of course, like the era of me, buying and selling $3,000 cars is kind of over. So I can't pick one up cheap anymore. So when I go for one, I have to either be wealthier or like, this is my car for the next decade, which I don't know if I like them that much. I haven't driven one, so I need to try it.
That's an interesting bar to clear. Like, what do you think is an option then for like, if you were to pull the trigger on something that would be your car for the next 10 years? My
brain is so not wired that way because I've been through, I don't know, a dozen cars in 7 years. So I switch pretty frequently. And I guess the one that I would really like to keep, and we'll see, time will tell. I'm still not 100% sure I'm going to end up being able to get my van Marcia fixed. Just because parts availability is so difficult and it's expensive. It's really expensive to dump a bunch of money into a 27-year-old Japanese market, extremely rusty van. Yeah. But really, that was kind of my plan. If that doesn't pan out and I can't keep that for the next decade, I honestly don't know. My partner's got a 87 4Runner. That thing's cool as hell. Like I love that. I can't afford one off the bat, but like, I don't know. We'll pay insurance on it. It's cool as hell. I love driving it. And like, it's 22RE, dead reliable, 5-speed locking hub, 4-wheel drive. Like, it's, I don't know. I'm reaching, I don't know if it's my age or if it's just like the state of the market or just a desire for more stability after so many years of swapping between cars rapidly. But I do kind of feel myself approaching a point where I'm like, all right, either the van is going to stick with me for a long time or I need to get something that I'm just like, good. It's going to work. I've looked at like old Civics, just like a 95 Civic, just because it's like, it looks cool. I know that like a stick one is going to be fun to drive, and I can walk into any AutoZone in the United States of America and I can rebuild the engine from the ground up. Right. And like I can take it to any mechanic in the United States and blindfolded, they could do anything. I could do most things in a parking lot. And like that's kind of where my head is at more lately. So like as much as I want a Legend, I kind of don't, unless it's like a second car, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why they're marketing Acura Legend. Let it be your second car. It bombed so drastically. Yeah. Acura. Hey, you want something else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we do a license plate game, or you want to do FMK cars first? What do you think, Dave?
Well, I want to loop back real quick. Civic Si, Acura Integra. Like, if price was neutral between the two, what do you think you would go for, Victoria?
Oh, Civic.
Civic, yeah. Yeah.
Give me the sport tires. Give me the bolsters.
Yeah. Okay.
Civic, and also if you can throw in the tune that will get rid of the rev hang, that'll be the first thing I'm doing. Probably the only modification I would do. But just give me that. I don't care if I got to reflash it every time I go to get an inspection because it's going to throw a CEL. I know it doesn't make the emissions worse. I'm not hurting the environment. I gotta get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not been plagued by a vehicle yet with rev hang myself. Yeah. I don't think the Abarth is even intelligent enough to know what that is. But yeah.
Well, I drove the HPD race car version recently, and they tuned that out pretty damn easy. So.
I was going to say, yeah, let's touch base on that real quick because you got to drive an amazing Honda race car, and I am crazy jealous.
Yeah, the story on that one will be out pretty soon, actually. I drove the Yes. I drove it's the prepped version of the Civic Si for touring car racing specifications, so global TCR. It's the same motor, same transmission, plus a strengthened third gear because Honda. And then it's got big ass brakes, it's got big ass wheels, it's got big ass tires, it's got a 6-point, FIA certified roll cage, gutted as hell, and straight piped. And that's basically it. It's more, and they sell it to you for $55,000, which is kind of absurd because that's like really cheap for a spec race car. Like the roll cage alone is like $12,000. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a pretty good bargain, I would say overall. But I drove it for like 2 or 3 laps around Nashville Super Speedway on the road course, the Roval setup, and it's just the coolest fucking thing. I mean, I don't know. I've never driven a car with slicks before. That was the big thing for me because I've driven cars on tracks. I've driven autocross and stuff. I have never driven a car with like literal Hoosiers that have no tread. And that is an entirely different world to live in. And also like all that friendliness, all that like what I was saying earlier with like the Civic Si where it's like, oh, it's friendly. It's like, it's encouraging you to find your limits. It's helping you race the canyons faster. That's gone. Fuck you. This car will put you into a wall if you're not careful. And that's the whole point because being friendly is slow and it wants to be fast. So it was really cool.
The sketchiest thing I've ever ridden in is there's a Volkswagen dealership that does track days out here, and they have a Jetta touring car that they bring out, and you can do ride-alongs in it with like a pro driver. And it is so sketchy how like stiff the rear is, and like it wants to oversteer in the straight.
So good, right? It's so good.
Like from
I love it.
Like I think it would be a ton of fun to drive, but like from the passenger, fucking terrifying.
Fun as hell.
Ian's a horrible passenger, Victoria. Like he is not good.
Bad passenger.
If Grandpa Dave over here scares him in his Saab Viggen, like come on, like buckle up. It gets way worse than me behind the wheel of that thing, right?
Yeah, but it was just crazy to feel how much it moved around everywhere. Like it just.
I don't know about the Jetta, but they usually dial in a bunch of camber and stuff too. So the car doesn't really want to go straight, which is like super cool. I don't know. I like a car that can kill me. It's my favorite thing.
I'm so jealous that you got to drive that. It's amazing.
That seems super cool. Yeah.
That was the highlight of. There are a lot of highlight moments. I've done a lot of stuff that I was really, really, really lucky to do, but that one was definitely like up there. Yeah. Because I don't know. It's a race car. I mean, that's what I and this will be on the drive soon, and probably will actually be on the drive by the time this podcast comes out. But like driving a real race car was just like this watershed moment for me. Like that's like the one that you check off the list. You're like, okay, this is a real car accomplishment. I did the actual track prep thing. I don't care if it's got 195 horsepower or whatever. Do 105 on the back straight and tell me you're not terrified.
Yeah.
And
front wheel drive race cars are like another plane. They're
oh my god, yeah. Oh no, it was so good.
Stuff's different after that, huh?
Yeah, it's like all it did was make me want to have a race car again. Like it just, I had really sticky tires on my Supra and I never like raced it, but I miss that kind of thing because I've got the van now. The Accord's been in Houston for years and it's going to be getting sold soon. So like my partner's got the 4Runner. So like I don't have a lot of fast stuff at my disposal. And then I went and drove that M2 this weekend and I'm like, oh my God, I just miss being a dumbass in a car with a manual transmission so much. Just,
it's pretty good. It's pretty
so good.
Right? Yeah. So
I'd like to thank Honda for giving me a good race suit so that I looked nice.
Fantastic.
That was my favorite part. I was like, wow, I get to style with the car. Great. I get to do a little matchy. That's great.
How do we get invited to these press events, Ian?
I know, right?
Right? Yeah. But
okay.
Drive sent me.
Yeah.
What should we do, Dave? What do you want to do first?
Ian, let's do your license plate game.
Okay.
Ian's been very excited about this. He texted me and I have no
Okay.
idea what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
This one is entitled "Are the Bros Okay?" And this is our game where we have 3 license plates, and you get the text of the license plates, and then you have to match them to the cars. The license plate itself in the car is blacked out. So,
Okay.
Dave, you want to bring that up for us?
Yep. Here we go. All right. Are the bros okay?
Oh my God.
From the soaring high note of Victoria in the Civic Si race car to all of this stuff.
Whatever this is.
Okay. All right. So while you're taking in
Give me a
this
zoom
stuff-
in on that top one. Is that a 4xe?
It is. So, so we've got a Wrangler 4xe silver with the color matched hard top.
Yep.
Not a bad spec, honestly.
No, it's
right?
a good looking car. It's good looking. Yeah.
Love the blue accents that they went with for those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And then we got a Gladiator
Mm-hmm.
Lifted, I would
lifted.
note. Significantly.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay.
Not a whole lot else going on. And then we've got a big boy toy.
A Lamborghini Gallardo. Yeah.
A pre-facelift Gallardo. It's a Spider too. Nobody's impressed, man. I'm sorry.
but
Look,
podcast
Those
listeners,
things cost less than like the average purchase price of a new EV in America right now.
I was thinking about that. It's probably cost less than whatever the person paid for the Gladiator.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Right?
The Gladiator's way more. If this person bought this, used a decent amount of miles on it, that Gladiator costs like a solid 10K more.
Yeah. Which I would hope that was the situation this person was in before they did this.
Well, that license plate's definitely NFT.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the license plates. Victoria. Easy.
Sorry. It's got to be said.
It does.
The license plates are J Alpha,
Mm-hmm.
NFT, and 2 modest.
Too modest, really.
2 modest.
So, Victoria, I don't know what these are either. Ian's kept them
Yeah, you
secret
guys are
from
on a
me.
team. You guys can work
Yeah.
together.
So, yeah.
I mean, okay, so J Alpha's got to be one of the 2 Jeeps.
Yeah.
2 modest only go. The 4xe isn't going to do a 2 modest. I don't think that actually is somebody who is 2 modest to use a 2 modest license plate. If I had to guess,
Okay.
like there's no external modifications, and 4xe people are like I don't know. Jeep people are interesting because I'm not part of that subculture, but like 4xe people are like pretty chill in my
Yeah,
experience.
they're
Like
the fun
rebel
ones.
rally kind of people. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
out using their Jeeps and like
Right.
do they drive them around town and stuff? But they also go like off-roading and they go rock crawling and stuff.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with like the I feel like the Lambo has got to be NFT because anybody lacking taste that much absolutely would have made 100K doing NFTs at the peak, bought a Gallardo thinking it was a good idea for 70,
Right.
and then flexed that because
Right.
that's your personality.
Right.
So
And
that's my
And is now broke trying to keep the Gallardo running.
right. I was
Yeah,
going to say
exactly,
now they go to sell a Bored Ape to do an oil change in the Gallardo. Find out it's only $30 right now, and that's not going to pay for an oil filter for that thing, right? Yeah. Any car that Nicolas Cage owned, like when he was in heavy tax crisis, is not a good financial decision, people. Do everything else Nicolas Cage did, sure, but Well, yeah, this, no, no. Yeah. So, okay. So we're saying NFT. Oh, Ian and I saw somebody at the cart track with a Bored Ape shirt on, and we were like, they funged their token. They funged it. Like, they did
Oh my God.
Yeah. These people walk amongst us, unfortunately. So, okay. I like your opinion about the Gallardo for sure. So for J Alpha being the 4xe, right? That's what we're thinking, right?
And I'm wondering if that person just has some other like meaning for it that's not like I'm the Jeep Alpha. It's just like somebody who's like, I don't know. I have no idea. That's my guess.
Right. It's like it was like the first of their like college frat or something like. It's not like alpha male, probably, maybe.
Yeah, that's my guess here because that one's the one that I could read the most. NFT and Too Modest are clearly people who just like should not have the privilege of getting vanity plates.
This is why you need us working the counter at the DMV. Yes, with a big red deny button, right? Stamp. Yeah. That we just apply to their forehead. Yeah.
So to recap, you've got J Alpha for the 4xe.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying Too Modest for the Gladiator.
Yeah.
And then NFT for the big boy toy Gallardo.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Dave, you're good with that?
I am.
Anyone want to change their answer?
No.
Okay, let's see it.
Okay. I'm going to the Dave Don't Look folder.
I have some bad news, folks.
The Dave Don't Look folder.
No. J Alpha is the Lambo and NFT's on the 4xe. Ian,
you're offset the whole point of getting the plug-in hybrid by
I have a theory on this because I took this picture and I nearly drove off the road getting this picture because I was so excited about it. I think what is going on here is that this person wanted people to think they had a G-Wagon. I think this is a little bit of G-Wagon cosplay going on here, which is why they've gone for this spec.
No.
No?
No, I don't think.
Or maybe they're very sweet and earnest, and that's their initials.
That honestly, I would buy that more.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is like no one Jeeps like. The thing is like to somebody who's not a car enthusiast, Jeep still stands alone. Like I am friends with a lot of people who are not car people, but like if they see a Jeep, you are not seeing the front end of a Jeep and saying like could be a Mercedes-Benz. No one has ever made that mistake. You could not pass off a Jeep. Any other SUV, absolutely. You throw enough like misdirection at the grill, you might get away with it. Not a Jeep. And also Jeeps themselves are respectable. Like Jeeps are now like expensive. 4xe is expensive.
Yeah.
So like that has its own respect to it. You don't need to pretend it's a Mercedes-Benz. It's probably better than it anyway.
I do like that we're trying to
I was gonna say that's big. That's a big statement.
I do like that we're trying to apply logic to the thinking of someone with an NFT license plate. I think we all lost the game when we tried doing that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it adds color, but this person did drive like a dick.
Okay.
Yeah. Too Modest, I think, fits perfect with whatever the fuck this is.
The funniest story I've ever got about a Jeep Gladiator is I went to Hungry Valley in Los Angeles with a couple other automotive writers, and the vehicles of the day were a Ford Bronco Sport Wild Peak or Wild Trim, whatever the top AT equipped version is, a Land Rover Defender 90, and we had a F-250 Tremor. And so we did all these trails, and it was like hard. It was challenging. And so I watch the Land Rover Defender 90 get through the downhill through the hardest section by far of the whole park. We make it out, and I'm like, my heart is in my chest. Well, it's definitely in my chest. My heart is in my pulse is in my ears. That's the turn of phrase I was looking for. And I watch a Gladiator start going up where we just went. I think he made it 15 feet and broke a turn signal. And then I just watched him do the do the reverse of shame,
Yeah.
and that told me everything I needed to know about Gladiator breakover angles.
That's really funny. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ian, you said your coworker that doesn't really know much about cars sent you one of these?
The bottom one, the Gallardo with big boy toy decals and J Alpha. And I was just like, holy shit. What is happening here?
Ian, the answer is no. The bros are not okay. The bros are not. Turns out they haven't been for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's not even a good color combo.
I know, right?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is promoting some sort of terrible business idea that this person, a vape shop or something. It's got to be, I don't know.
I mean, Big Boy Toy conjures up a lot of product lines for me, and I don't feel like anybody who's got the license plate J Alpha would be selling them, but I could be entirely wrong. I haven't been to that side of Grindr.
Who knows? I don't know. But I guarantee you one thing: an LLC definitely owns this car.
Hang on, I'm Googling Big Boy Toy for my work computer.
Big Boy Toys for alphas. Yeah.
And I'm fired. Yeah.
Well done, everybody. Well done.
Wow.
That was the bros okay.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yes.
Do you have an FMK cars, I believe.
I do. And so, Victoria, I wanted to run past some of the Honda Civic Si line as an FMK, right? Like,
okay.
Right.
I have one semantic thing.
Yeah.
For FMK for cars, it's always a little weird because I don't marry or fuck cars.
Right.
So are we doing like a daily one fling through the canyons, send to the crusher kind of thing here?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Mary is it's your daily driver.
Yep.
F is you have it for a day and you can do whatever you want with it. And then K means you kill it, it goes to the crusher.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure the translation's clear.
Yep. You got it. You got it.
Okay.
So I'm going to pick from 3 different generations of Civic
God, this is gonna be so hard.
Okay. You can crush one gently.
Can I throw myself into the crusher to spare it?
We would never let you do that. Okay. All right. I was going to throw a 7th and an 8th generation in before, like, we kind of went into them. I think I'm going to leave those out.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we're going to pick the 4th generation here, this 1991.
Yep. So we got EF.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The 6th generation.
EM.
Yep. And let's go 9th generation.
Okay.
Okay. We're not making you kill anything you truly love, right?
I mean, yeah, you are.
Oh.
Okay. That is, I mean, I've driven one of these and I don't think it was an SI, factory SI at least. It was phenomenal. And like my friend Romero, who you might have come across on Twitter before, El Romero. I don't. He changes his @ too much, so I forget what it is. But like, owns a Honda shop in Costa Rica and is a race car driver.
Oh snap!
Raced one of these for a while and just did inhuman things with it. Like I'm talking about, beating cars with double the horsepower, kind of like the heroic clips you watch on, YouTube from the Australian mixed make, series races, but like in Costa Rica. I am fully aware of how incredible this platform is. Just like they are so good. They are so good. So, okay, we can. So that's the one, and then what's the other one you gave me?
Yeah, so that was the 91, right?
I mean, you can't crush this one because there's none of them left. They all got stolen.
True.
You can't crush an EM1 because a clean EM1 is already the rarest thing in the entire world.
True.
And then the 11th gen. Well, the 11th gen I'm going to crush because that's the only one that I can be like, it's still a great car, but just like, I don't know, it's not elevated to the point of like legendary status yet. It's still I don't know. I think there's a little bit of the not sporty, but kind of like the rough edges are sanded off a bit in this one, and so like it looks kind of cool, but it looks the most Civic-like to me. It looks the most kind of generically Honda sedan of them, and the other two are at least coupe or hatchback.
Yeah,
3-door versions, so they look a little sportier, and also just like I don't know. The tuning potential on these motors is enormous, but they don't do the same things for me out of the box.
Okay.
So we can crush the 9th gen.
Okay.
Also, those wheels are hideous. I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is not a good time for Honda wheels.
So now we're down to, oh my God.
Well,
I do love this.
You're giving me the hardest question. Yeah, Electron Blue EM1 is just like, oh my God.
There's so many good cars that came in a blue like that. Yeah, this is a great one.
And that's one of the ones that like, I almost want to say the EF just because like the EM1 is a nicer place to be inside of, but they get stolen so much. Like even now they still get stolen all the time. Mm-hmm. Like a 97 Civic Si is, you might like, there is no club on earth. There is no electronic system on earth. There's nothing you can do to that to deter people because they all see an Electron Blue Si and like they're just like, well, I gotta have it. And like to an extent, I almost get it, man. Like the only time I ever thought about Grand Theft Auto in real life was I walked past an Electron Blue EM1 and I was like, that might actually be prison. I don't know.
just the vehicle is just covered in AirTags, Apple AirTags, just super glued to every pass, like the worst Tim Apple vehicle wrap ever. Yeah.
Reverse golf ball.
Yeah, so I guess I'd take that one for a very spirited canyon run. I own the EF because you can. The other thing that's so nice about EFs too is that like it costs $10 to give one 500 horsepower. Like there's so many parts for EFs, and like the thing is like that was single cam D16 still, I think, right? It was D16. I have to look up the motor now.
That's okay.
Sorry, I don't remember them all off the top of my head. I'm a terrible Honda enthusiast.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah, D16 A6. That's what it was. Okay. So the thing that's great about that is that you can buy D16 single cam D16 parts, especially for no money. You just go to somebody's garage who's been working on Hondas. But I could probably go to your uncle's garage, honestly.
Probably.
And I could just be like, hey, man, you got any D16 stuff? And he'd be like, thank God. I've been trying to get rid of this shit for 20 years. Yeah. And you just go take a big box. Yeah. You take a big crate full of old Honda stuff and you slap it on there. And you only need like 2 wrench sizes. And even I could work on it because it's so simple. Like, that's the one that you own because like even I could fix it.
Yeah.
That is the unkillable Honda Civic Si. And also they look cool.
Yeah, they look
They do. They've aged. That's the thing, like all of these, like with 20 years, they all look great. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing. And the other thing too that I'll say that's one of the other alluring things about my Hondas I hadn't mentioned earlier, but every Honda I've ever been in of any era, no matter how many miles it's got, the interior still feels nice.
Yeah.
They don't, for whatever reason, the plastics they were using didn't crack like everybody else's. The door cards always like kind of stay in place. The seats are really hard to tear. Like you actually got to try, at least if they're cloth. And like they just, they don't have like they use like occasional little plastic rattles or whatever. But for the most part, they feel like well constructed.
Yeah.
Just don't get in a car accident.
True.
Yeah. This car's in BeamNG Drive, and it scared me.
You just turn into a pink mist. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my health insurance plan.
Yeah.
You die in the car accident, and then you don't have health. You don't have to worry about doctor bills.
See?
I'm gonna have to fire up BeamNG. I didn't know this was in it. Yeah. Okay.
It's called the Ibishu DX or something.
Okay.
But it's in the game. It's in the base game, and it's like actually really fun. They have like a hill climb version too. So
Nice.
yeah. I spend way too much time in that game.
Ian, we're gonna fire that up on the sim. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, thank you for being equal parts sage, wisdom, Honda Acura guru, therapist, comedic relief.
Yeah.
We honestly, I got out of those cars and it was like, yeah, I got to talk to Victoria. We have some stuff we need to work through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you liked him.
Yeah.
It's a fun experience to get to go drive all of them, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super great, and it was super eye-opening driving them back to back, because it really highlights like, oh, these cars are very similar if you just look at two spec sheets, but they are for different things. You know, they suit two different purposes completely, and you really get that when you get a chance to drive them back to back. So it was a cool experience. Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to do an episode just about one of them and not talk about the other one? Like, I mean, that's
kind of weird, right?
I could talk about the Civic Si alone for about an hour and 20 minutes. I love that car so much.
Yeah, it was really cool. I liked it a lot too. Yeah. One of the other cars that we drove was the Z. Was the new Z.
Oh, I haven't driven that yet.
And
dying to try it.
On the road we were on, you know, after just being in both of them for 5 minutes or whatever, the Civic was so much faster over that same ground, like so much faster, because you get in it and someone just hands you a lap full of confidence, you know, like you can do this, you got it.
Yeah.
I'm super curious to drive the Z, but I'm glad you got to drive them all together, because that's a good mix. And that's always like the most fun part of the job, I guess. Like the whole takeaway I've had from all of this, like, because I've only been an automotive writer for like 18 months,
right,
full time basically, and like the takeaway is just like, damn, it's really fun driving cars. That's just, I keep coming back to that. Like it you know, events like that where you get to go actually try this stuff out and, you know, have opinions on like what you enjoy and what you don't. It's a really, really fun gift to have. Definitely. So I'm glad that you invited me to talk about it, because I genuinely love chatting about this kind of stuff with people who have gotten to try them too.
Yeah.
Even if they're wrong and they prefer an Integra, it's still fun.
Oh, thank you, Victoria. Yes, the show's over. Well, we need to talk about your plugs, because there's tons of stuff that you do that we want people to know about, right? People, first of all, need to follow you on Twitter at Mikaru Beahina, right? Yes. I've been practicing that all day.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
They absolutely need to buy your picture book that's up on itch.io.
Yes.
The Pilgrimage.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my biggest like independent project I've done recently. And that's with the 4Runner I was talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Amazing pictures. Those first gen 4Runners are the best. So you're completely right.
There'll be a review of that one on our site soon, actually.
Yes.
So, but I did the book first just because I was so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So they need to. Oh, go ahead.
I will note too. I was just going to say that it's on itch.io and it's a pay as you want, so you can totally get it for free. And I kind of wanted people to just be able to. It was my first ever photo book I ever made, like completed project, and it was the first time that I'd ever tried to take my photography from just a place where it was like, this is a sequence of images that is kind of like a pastiche of a day, or like a little window into my life or the things I saw, and try to actually tell like a cohesive, set in its own time and place story. So I would love, you know, don't feel compelled to pay. Please take a look at it and let me know what you think. I'm actually curious. I want to do more things like this, and feedback actually really helps.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I loved it. It's a fantastic narrative. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So we're really thankful that you put that out there, because it's great. And awesome that you made it name your own price. That's fantastic, right? Like it's
very cool.
Yeah. So we're really thankful for that. Yeah. So besides following you on Twitter, checking out your picture book, reading your articles on Slash Gear and Drive.
Oh no, I'm full time the Drive.
Oh, full time the Drive now.
So
okay.
the Slash Gear stuff was stuff I did last year when I was freelancing, and like I still love that story. I still love. I mean, Chris Davies is like has been one of my mentors in the industry and stuff, and I love what they're doing there. But my stuff nowadays is just on the Drive.
Okay, gotcha.
So yep, you can find all of it there. I do a lot of news stuff. I have to update this site again. My personal site, because I haven't put a lot of features on it in a bit. But yeah, I've got everything there, and I've done a bunch of feature work recently that I was pretty into. I think the biggest ones, I've started a photography series on how to do automotive photography called Picture Perfect. I've been trying to do some longer form stuff. We've got a retro review series going. So I reviewed actually the original Civic, like I had talked about, and the Accord, the first Accord that Honda brought into the US. And then I've done some longer investigative features on things like Hyperloop, or like the Virgin Hyperloop setup, or automated car telematics, and how they can track you, and how that relates to Roe v. Wade and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to do more like service journalism, kind of here's the scoop kind of stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, yeah, absolutely check us out. We have lots.
Yeah, I really liked your reporting on the privacy stuff.
Thank you.
That was really cool.
Yeah, we have a really good team there, so there's a lot of good stuff on there. I mean, James and Lewin just did a cross Australia drive in an EV6. We did a bunch of good reporting on like the actual efficiency of EVs over their lifespans recently that I was really into. Like, there's a ton of great stuff.
Yeah, the drive is great. Well, do we miss anything, Victoria? Is there anything else?
That's all I got.
All right.
I feel like I talked way too much as it is.
Nope.
That's the whole point of this. Yeah. Dave, if people enjoyed this, what should they do?
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Tell a friend. Grab your parents' computers when they're not looking and subscribe to our channel, their iPhones, whatever. Do that stuff. If you see bonkers vanity plates, go ahead and text them to 720-515-1391. We've kind of repurposed. We had like an Apex adjacent crisis line, and it's been repurposed to people see bananas people with weird vanity plates, and they text them to us, and we put them in these games. You can also call and leave us a voicemail if you're into that. Yep. If you're working through some
Dave,
stuff.
you're not going to believe this shit I just saw.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, right? So if you're working through some stuff, leave us a voicemail. If, you like an Integra better than an SI, and there's nothing, you don't feel bad about that. But also, slide into our DMs on Twitter and Instagram, Apex Adjacent. Be a weirdo and send us vanity plates there, because then Ian gets them and I don't look at them. Yep. And that's how we keep that secret from one another. And so that's about it. Well, thank you again, Victoria. Everybody else, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you again for having me. See y'all.
Bye.